Are we intrinsically good or evil? What do I mean by intrinsic? Well, that word means like the very nature, the essence of something that is true to the core. So, for example, the intrinsic worth of a gem or the intrinsic brightness of a star. Like it's the very nature of what it is. So are we intrinsically, is our nature, the core of who we are, good or evil? What we choose to believe in the end is going to have some consequences. Like it's really going to impact how we treat ourselves and how we treat others. Let's look at this together, okay? Before I start with the topic for today, I want to invite you over to a Facebook group that I started. It's called Vibrant Life with Brent Locker. And so if you would come on over and join the conversation, we're really there to talk about the goodness of God. And I'm going to post some of the videos that I put here, but also with discussions. And we're already generating some great conversations there. In fact, when you go on there right now, what's posted at the top is just for you to introduce yourself and just share a couple sentences about the goodness of God in your life during this season. So come on over if you'd like to join in the conversation. And so today's topic is about whether we are inherently good or evil. I'm talking about you, me, all of humanity. And just what an important question that is. And I understand all the conversation around it. I've had conversations with people who feel one way or the other, but obviously both can't be true. And so once again, I'm not here to tell you what you have to think. I wouldn't even pretend to want to do that, but rather just share with you some of where I'm at right now. And just encourage you to add your own thoughts down below or come on over to that Vibrant Life Facebook community. And but before I talk about a few Bible verses around this, I want to actually start with my granddaughter, Iris. And you could see already my face light up because she is such a bundle of joy. She brings myself and my wife, Suzanne, so much joy. We have the privilege of taking care of her, watching her 2 times a week, where her parents are at work or at school right now, and it's our joy to do it. And when I look at that little girl, the first thing that I know about her is that she is beautiful and that she's good. My spirit knows this. Sometimes the reason why I want to start with this is sometimes we get in our heads a little bit when we're talking theology, when we're looking at scripture. And I know these are really important and good things to do, but I honestly want to say our spirit knows what's true. When I look at that little girl, I do not look at her and think, oh, you inherently evil little girl. I don't. I think, oh, you are such a good little girl. And so full of life and light and joy, and you bring so much joy to me. Just because she's herself, because she's already created in the image of God. So you can tell where I'm going with this, but I wanted to lead with that before I now talk about a few other things. So one of the verses that I want to look at is for those that would think that maybe we are just bad. We're just a wicked, evil to the core. They might look at a scripture like Jeremiah 17:9. And which says this is in the New Living Translation: the human heart is the most deceitful of all things and desperately wicked. Who really knows how bad it is? Yikes. I mean, yeah, you read a scripture like this and you're like, oh my goodness, really? I must be a terrible person. And sometimes we agree with a scripture like this because we look at our own failings or the times we perceive ourselves to fail. Like we do things that are destructive and we say, why? Why did I do that? Or maybe we say, I don't ever want to do that again, but we find ourselves doing it anyway. And so sometimes we can come to the conclusion, well, my heart just must be that wicked. I must be that bad of a person. Friends, you have to look at Scripture in its context of what's saying. You also have to look at all of the message together in the Bible, which is really pointing to a person, Jesus. And so we really have to look at his life when we're looking at this really all important question. Okay, so that Scripture that seems so. I would just say, it makes it futile. Like, what chance do we have? What hope do we have? First of all, let's look at it in its context, okay? The verses preceding it says, cursed is the person who trusts in their own selves. They're in humans. It's saying when we're trusting in our own perceptions, we're cursed, not by God. We're cursed. This is part of the curse of Adam, of trusting in himself. That was actually the original problem. What is the original sin? The original sin was Adam not trusting God. I don't believe your goodness, so I'm going to trust my own perception and do something you said not to do because it would hurt me. Yeah, I'm going to do it anyway. Guess what? That's what we inherited was I don't care who it's going to hurt. I'm going to do it anyway. And so in this verse, cursed is the one who trusts in themselves instead of the Lord. Yeah, in fact, what it goes on to say is that person, they're like a scrub in the wasteland, parched deserts in the wilderness. I mean, you almost feel the tongue stick into the roof of your mouth. It's so dry. And it says when good comes, they can't even see it. They can't. That means good is coming all the time. Our Father blesses everyone. That's scriptural too. God blesses everyone because he's a good Father. But when we're perceiving things from our own perceptions, when we're not trusting in the goodness of God, we don't even see it for what it is. The next couple of verses, they say, but blessed are those who trust in the Lord. And it's interesting because it flips it around. It says those people, it says they're like trees with their roots that thrust down to the stream. And it says even in a year of drought, they're untroubled. They don't stop bearing fruit even when there's drought. Isn't it interesting? It flips it around. So in the first one, when we're trusting in our own perceptions, we can't see what's what, right? And we're making our own decisions. And when good comes, we can't see it. On the other one, we're blessed all the time when we trust the Lord and what he says is good and that he is good and kind and always for us. And because we're so trusting in him, even when circumstances are hard, circumstances are always going to go up and down. But the goodness of God remains. Like he is so good. He will bless you through everything. And so this one says, even in the times when times are hard, when things look difficult, that person, they're still bearing fruit. They're still that green hillside. Right now there's green hillsides because right, we just had all the rains and it's beautiful. That's what we're like all the time because our roots, they have found water deep down in. And what's that water? Yeah, that stream is Jesus. It's the life of Jesus. And it's coming up through us and there's nothing stopping it. And so it's in that context that the next verse says, basically is saying again, man, when we perceive what we perceive, we're living in that cursed place. And who even knows how to differentiate what's what? What's our own thoughts? What's God's thoughts, right? We all struggle with this. Here's a Jeremiah 17:9 in the Wycliffe Bible. It's one of the best ones I've seen. It says, the heart of man is shrewd and unsearchable. Who shall know it? Now, that word shrewd, again, it's not a word we use a lot, but the definition of it is having or showing a clever awareness or resourcefulness by artful and cunning practices or tricky. So shrewd means, yeah, you know what? When we lead the show of our own lives by our own doing what we want to do, apart from God, like we're choosing to do what we want, then yeah, there's that cunning, there's the hiding, there's the, and it gets us into terrible predicaments and places and terrible decisions. It really is at the root of why we keep blowing up relationships, why we keep blowing up our life. And notice I say we keep blowing up our life. It's not the Lord. It's not God. He has nothing but blessings for you and for me. So I'm bringing this up because that's the context of all this. And actually, there's some brilliant Hebrew scholars who talk about two root words in that part, that word that we say depraved, when it says the human heart is depraved or sick. There's two different root words of the Hebrew there, and both of them are valid. And together, it really paints a picture that of weakness. The human heart is weak, and this is exactly weak and sick. Like we make decisions that are not good when we try to do things apart from Him, because we are weak. We are weak. Remember, Paul said, "When I am weak, then I am strong." Paul didn't say, "When I am weak, then you are strong." That's how we misquote that verse. He said, "When I am weak, then I am strong." I am strong, which means when I understand my human frailty on my own, by myself, making my own decisions, when I understand that, now I can make the choice to yield to God's Spirit within me. Now His Spirit strengthens me. So now I'm strong. This is where this is coming from. And really, this is exactly what Jesus said. This sense of our weakness, our frailty, this is very scriptural. Jesus talked about this. And there's a place in the Bible where Jesus is talking about trusting God. Here we go. This is what this comes down to, doesn't it? Are we going to trust the goodness of God, or are we going to not trust God's goodness and say, well, I'm going to try to figure this thing out on my own, and I'm going to do what I want to do, which gets us into all kinds of hot water, and we all know it, every one of us. But instead, Jesus says he's talking about trust in the Father, and he brings up an illustration of the flowers of the field. And he says, look at them. He goes, they're taken care of. The birds of the air, they don't think about where their next meals are coming from. And the Father cares for them, and how much more He cares for you and for me. But then Jesus goes on, and he says, so why do you worry? In other words, he's saying, trust the goodness of your Father. And then he gets to this part. He says, so don't be afraid, little flock. And there's, honestly, that Greek right there, you can translate little diapered ones. Don't be afraid, little diapered ones. It pleases your Father to give you the kingdom. Why little diapered ones? Why little flock? Because Jesus is saying, I understand, my Father understands your frailty, your weakness. We know that you need us. Trust us. We're going to take you to good places. We're going to take care of you. See, this is what he's saying. Jesus perfectly represented his Father's heart. And so that's why he's saying, trust your Father. He's trustworthy. And that little diapered one, that brings us right back around, doesn't it? To the illustration or the example I started with of my granddaughter Iris. You know what? She trusts us. She looks at us and sees the joy in our faces and knows that she's going to be taken care of. She doesn't think about where her next meal's coming from. It's our joy to do that for her. It's our joy to sit with her. And now as a grandparent, I just got to tell you, things are a little bit different than I experienced a lot of this when I had my two sons and such joy raising them. It's a little different as a grandparent because I'm in a different stage of life. And honestly, as a parent, you're trying to, you're juggling about 5 things, and you got work and you got this and that, and you're doing your best, and you're still loving your kids for sure. As a grandparent and in this stage of life, I'm telling you, it's different in that I got all the time in the world for that little girl. Like, I could just sit with her and she's my world right there. and just sitting with her, being with her, laughing at the little things she does. It's enough. It's where I want to be. I got nowhere else to be, nothing else to do than to be with her right then. And this is us with our Father. This is his heart for us. He says, I'm right here for you. And so it isn't wickedness that we have. It's actually goodness. When we look at Adam and Eve, we have to ask the question, were they created good or evil? And we know the answer to that, right? We know the answer because it's right there in Scripture. The Father makes all of creation, and the last one he created was Adam, and then Eve. And he said his creation was very good. Once he made them, he said, oh, I look at everything, and now that I made you, my creation is very good. So there we are. From the beginning, we, all of humanity, created in God's image, created very good. And so therefore, when we look at Jesus' death on the cross, we have to ask a different question. And that question is this: did Jesus come to die on the cross to make us valuable, or did he die on the cross to awaken us to our value, our intrinsic worth, that we are created in the image of God? And I so believe that is exactly what Jesus came to do. He came to take off of us the veil that could not see what God knows to be true, because we were choosing to look with our own perception and make our own judgments on ourselves and others. And so do we do things that are wrong, things that are evil? Yes, we do. Not because it's who we are, though. See, there's a huge distinction there. Very important. Because if we believe we're bad to the core, then honestly, we will start playing that out. In fact, there's really no hope. And so basically, people who give themselves to that and say, well, I'm just evil, that's just the way it is. Yeah, we know historically that's terrible. People can do terrible things. But if that same person were to somehow, by God's Spirit, be able to shift and to see what God sees to be true, that there's the goodness that's in there, and that which Jesus died. He died to take away the shame and the badness, the feeling of shame and badness associated with the wrong things we do, because God says, yeah, that isn't what defines you. What defines you is who I say you are. And so my son, Jesus, had to wipe the slate clean so that you could, through his Spirit, begin to see your spirit communicating with my spirit, the Spirit of Christ in you, to know what is true, what I say is true about you. And that's what's awakening in us. There's so much more I could say, so much more I want to say, but I want to end with this. The reason why I'm sitting here with at my keyboard is because I want to play a little portion of a song. And this was a few years ago. I was just a couple of years ago. I was just in one of those bad places. I had, making wrong choices. We all do it, even when we know Jesus, even though we know he loves us. And this is where we can get discouraged. And so, filled with shame, unless we remember what Jesus has done for us, we will go back to places of shame. We will go back to places that just aren't true of us. And so I was out walking, and I was listening, on my headphones, to my earbuds or whatever, to this song. It's called Defender by Rita Springer. And there's this one, it's called A Bridge. And I love that this is the bridge of this song. A bridge just means it's not the actual verses. It's not the chorus that you keep going back to. A bridge is kind of like one little part of the song that's different than the rest of it. And then it bridges you usually back to the chorus. And I love that it's called a bridge because Jesus was, oh my goodness, he'll use songs, he'll use all kinds of things to get past our wrong thinking at times, our distorted perceptions about who we think we are. And he breaks into that. And this was a song that did that for me. And as it broke in, I just started weeping. And I just want to play for you this one stanza. This whole time I've been sitting at this keyboard to play for you this one stanza that just gripped my heart as I was weeping, because this is the truth. God doesn't condemn our hearts. He is actually restoring us. Here's the song. Are you ready? When I thought I lost me, you know where I left me. You reintroduced me to your love. You picked up all my pieces. You put me back together. You are the defender of my heart. When I thought I lost me, you know where I left me. You reintroduced me to your love. You picked up all my pieces. You put me back together. You are the defender of my heart. Friends, he's the defender of your heart. He's the one that picks up the pieces every time. Not one time, not 100 times, every time. As many times as your heart forgets who you are. That the answer to that question, who can know our hearts? The answer is God does. His Spirit does. And there's a scripture that says that His Spirit is the one that separates out what's our own thoughts from and perceptions from what is His Spirit talking to our spirit. Friends, God is the one. He's the one who loves your heart. He's the one who made you good in His image. So I'm just asking God's Spirit to confirm to you, yes, Lord, I am made in your image. Yes, Father, when you look at me, you say, I'm very good. I have intrinsic worth. Jesus, when you died for me, it wasn't to make me valuable. It was to show me my value. You're so blessed, friends. You're so blessed because you're chosen and wanted and loved by the Father who created you.